All right, so welcome back again to another series, another video in the series of cybersecurity fundamentals, just the bare bones and the basics of how we need to better protect our devices, right? To various apps and platforms, or OSs rather, to do so. All right, so what we're going to do now in this video is go over encryption. Excuse me. So in this particular one, at least to start off with, we're going to be going over configuring BitLocker on data drops. So I'm going to talk a bit first about BitLocker in general, right? So it's a full disk encryption security feature that protects the OS and the user data. And the protection provided by BitLocker, it remains enforced on the encrypted disk, whether the computer is turned on or off. Therefore, this technology ensures the confidentiality of disk contents, even against offline attacks made by disabling Windows or physically removing a hard disk drive to view the contents on another computer. BitLocker uses the trusted platform module that provides integrated protection of Windows and data files during the boot phase of the OS. So TPM is actually a microchip embedded on the system motherboard that can be enabled using the BIOS of the computer system. So a Windows computer hard drive, it contains, or it usually contains, two partitions, right? So a system partition that contains the files for starting Windows, and then the partition that hosts the Windows where the OS resides, at least the data for it. Now, when the BitLocker is initialized, it creates the necessary partition for our computer. Now, the NTFS is the supported file system when a drive is encrypted. And what we're going to do now to start is we're going to create an additional disk volume considered as data volume and protected with BitLocker. So a few outcomes that we're going to have towards the end of the video is shrinking a volume and create a secondary volume, enabling the group policy setting for BitLocker, and encrypting the fixed drive using BitLocker, and managing a BitLocker enabled drive using command prompt. All right, so first, shrinking a volume and creating a secondary volume. So we understand that BitLocker supports the volume, right? The encryption of the disk volume where Windows is actually enabled or installed. However, we may not be able to view the BitLocker password prompt in the pre-login phase of this particular lab because of this limitation. Now, we'll still be able to shrink the primary hard disk and use the reclaimed disk space to create a secondary value for the BitLocker, but the secondary disk volume will be used as a data drive where the user files can be stored. So so we're connected to the proper server. All right, perfect. So now that we've already signed in, I'm just going to head to disk management here. Now on the disk management, we're going to right click the this, and then we're going to shrink volume. Now we need to understand while it's querying, each volume has a specific defined size, right? And we'll see that on here. When we shrink to a smaller size, for example, if you have a hard drive of, let's say 1024 gigabytes, right? And you have a single partition, you can actually shrink it to a smaller size of your choice. Now, such as a 512 gigabytes. Now you have another 512 gigabytes left over that could be used for a different value. That could be used as a different value. So now that we have the shrink dialog box for this particular drive, right, it shows that the volume for the available shrink space is, has been queried to show us what we have here, right? So we're going to change this to 1024, and we're going to click shrink, and it's going to show us here in a second what it looks like after a shrink. So now we'll notice that the status of disk 0 will have it has a 1 gigabyte of an unallocated partition, right? So now I'm just going to take a look into there, right? And then new simple values, right? And we'll see the dialog box here. So we'll hit next. Then we're going to try to keep it at the default settings, right? And then we're going to keep the default specifications also. All right. And now that we're on the format partition, we're going to keep the default settings as well. Hit next, and then we're going to hit finish. Now, when usually I would stop, and as far as during a production, I'm in an enterprise. So on the new simple volume wizard page, I'll read through the summary about the disk volume. Now, a new volume has been created, and after we did shrink the existing volume, it created a new partition on the hard drive, which means I've formatted a new volume. And after formatting the new volume, it assigned a drive letter, which means that I can access it by the drive letter, such as E drive. Right. So, and sometimes you may be prompted to check if you want to format the newly created disk volume, and it can appear as a minimized icon on the taskbar, just in case you may, wonder that if you're following along with this particular with this exercise. So now that we're back on the disk management dialog box, we'll notice that the new volume has now been initialized, right? The volume D. And so now that we see that, we're going to close out this box, well, this window rather. So for this, now that allows us to move on to the next task. With this task, which we're going to enable the group policy setting for BitLocker. Now, as I mentioned before, for the TPM model or the trusted platform module, that chip is not supported on this lab, unfortunately, but we can enable the group policy setting to bypass the detection of a TPM to support BitLocker on the Windows computer. So in a Windows group policy, which is a set of administrative policies that can be applied to users and computers that are part of a domain, right? So for example, if we create a password policy and a group policy and apply it at the domain level, which then further applies to all the users in the domain. So all domain users will be required to meet these password specifications, such as password complexity and length, right? And what we're going to do is just configure a group policy settings to bypass the detection of the TPM chip on Windows. So let's see, we're going to hit run here. I'm going to type in a command, gpedit. Perfect. So now on the local group policy editor, I'm just going to expand the, see which configuration. Actually, let me open this up here. Configuration, right? There it is. Can't really see this. See that, right? Windows components here. Actually, let me just click on it so I can just see it a bit better this way. So then we're going to go to BitLocker Drive Encryption, and then operating system. John. Okay, perfect. So I'm looking for now the require additional authentication at startup, and then I'm going to see. There's two of them. All right, edit. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to select the enabled option, and then I'm just going to ensure that the allow BitLocker without a compatible without a compatible TPM, which usually requires a password or startup key on like a USB flash drive. I'm going to make sure that box is selected. Yep, that's here. There it is. I'm going to keep everything at default. All right. Now, by enabling this policy, I've configured the system to bypass the detection of the TPM chip on Windows, which means that BitLocker will be enabled with the support of the TPM chip, which is typically used for storing the encryption keys. So I'll notice that now this that's highlighted has been set to enabled, right? And now I'm just going to close this here. And now this allows us to move on to the next step, which is encrypting the fixed drive using BitLocker. All right, so now our system is ready to support BitLocker. We'll encrypt the irrelevant drive using BitLocker. So now we're just going to make sure I'm on the right server. I'm going to encrypt the secondary hard disk drive. Let's see, so let's go to File Explorer, and then this PC. It should be new volumes. There it is. Right then. There it is. Okay, thought it was going to be an option, but I have to right click it. All right, so now we have our dialog box open, right? So under this one for choose how you want to unlock this drive, we're going to select the use a password to unlock the drive checkbox. And then we're going to enter a generic password. All right, next. And then I'm going to save to, oh, no, we don't want that. There we go. All right, we're going to name it, let's see. Perfect, right? All right, perfect. So we saved it, that long name, but nonetheless, we saved it. So I'm going to hit next here. And then on this particular page, we're going to make sure that this is selected to encrypt, not this, but I'm sorry, the encrypt entire drive. Then we're going to hit next here. Then on this page, we're going to keep the default selection of the do encryption mode. Then we're going to hit next, and then we want to start encrypting, right? So sometimes it could take a few moments for the BitLocker to encrypt a drive. And then after it does this, then we can click, I'm going to click this PC, actually. And then this should be a padlock. There it is, perfect. So there's a padlock now with a new volume D drive. However, I may need to restart this particular server to let the BitLocker finish the encryption process on the new volume. So I'm just going to close this out, and then it's going to restart here. Right.
All right, perfect. So we have it back up and running here.
And so with the backup and running now, we can take a look at the file explorer, make sure everything is running properly. All right, so now we can see that the local disk drive is enabled for BitLocker encryption. So I'm just going to double click. Oh, okay. So I just got to enter in the password, right? And unlock. Okay, perfect. Now the BitLocker protected drive is unlocked. And I'm just going to close this now that we verified that. Now it allows us to move on to our next task, which is going to be manage a BitLocker enabled drive using a command prompt. So in addition to control panel and the file explorer, we can actually use the command prompt tool to call manage bd.exe. You'll see in a moment. For this task, I'm going to run that tool to view the properties of a drive protected by a BitLocker. So I'm just going to do this here, bring up our command prompt, and I'll tell it, the computer, exactly what I want it to do, right? Actually, I'll need a little bit of space here. Let's see. Perfect. So now the status of the fixed drives on this server for Windows 101, now they're displayed, and we'll also notice that the convergence status of D drive is now marked as fully encrypted. I should see it here. See, yep, fully encrypted here. And now on the next prompt, we're going to do something just a bit different. We're going to type in a command to decrypt the D drive. So let's see. Let's see here. There we go. All right, perfect. So now the Windows has begun decrypting the D drive, which you'll see now is in progress here. And we'll also want to note that the decryption will immediately take effect on the drive because it's empty at the moment. Now on our next prompt, we're going to go back to our original command that we had at first, check the status. And now the status of the fixed drive is now displayed, right? So we'll also now notice that the conversion status, right, shows fully decrypted for the D drive. So that's actually a good sign. And now that I've completely shown how to use another tool for managing a BitLocker enabled drive using specifically the command prompt tool. And now we're at the end of the video. Now that we've done some encrypting, we've configured some BitLocker on data drives. We were able to shrink a volume and create a secondary volume. We enabled the group policy setting for BitLocker. I can't speak today. And we've also encrypted the fixed drive using BitLocker. And lastly, managed the BitLocker using the command prompt tool. Thank you for reaching the end of this video. I'll see you on the next one for my cybersecurity fundamentals.